Thank you for listening to Compas Unfiltered. For this episode, out of respect for our guest, we're not going to use her name or show her face.
For those listening on YouTube, so you will be seeing the blurred face on there. For those listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you won't be affected. But we do want to thank you for tuning into this episode.
Thank you. What up? This is Compas Unfiltered, and I'm your host, Checo.
And this is your co-host, Noe. What up?
Yes, sir. Today, we'll be talking about mental health, brother. And today, our special guest, is going to help us out and talk about this, is Jane. Welcome to Compas Unfiltered.
Hey, hello. Welcome, Jane. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on and helping us talk about this subject. We'll be talking about anxiety, depression, and just because some of us, a lot of Latinos, we don't see the depression or anxiety as a thing. We ignore it. We think it's non-existent, I guess, for us or whatever. We're just not informed, but it's real and it's out there. I go through anxiety now. And it's crazy. It's definitely crazy. Mm-hmm. So, to tell us a little about yourself, as far as your school, your background, whatnot.
So I do have my master's in social work. I attended, Aurora University for both my bachelor's and my master's degree. So after I graduated, I got hired with the company that I'm with right now, and I've been there for about 4 years. So, yeah.
That's cool. No, yeah. Well, with depression and anxiety, especially with the pandemic, and it was at an all-time high, mm-hmm. but it was even, I guess it was worse for kids because mm-hmm. they're so young and they're going through stuff like this. Mm-hmm. What was it about mm-hmm. the pandemic that made all these kids go into depression, have anxiety, panic attacks, and whatnot? I mean, what was it?
So when kids are going to school, they have a certain routine. So when they go, they wake up in the morning, they have their breakfast, and they're off to school up until sometimes 2:30, 3 o'clock. So it depends, but they're used to socializing. They're used to seeing their friends. They're used to learning. They're used to most people are visual learners. So when they're learning from a computer, that's very, very different. But I feel it has to do more with the socializing aspect. When children get to socialize, that's where their brain develops, and that helps them grow even more. So when you kind of take that away, that atmosphere away, and you're just sitting in front of a computer, it's really, really hard for them, especially let alone in the classroom, to pay attention. Can you imagine just being on the computer? It's hard. Even for an adult.
Distractions, yeah.
Yeah, even for an adult, you're on a Zoom meeting for 3 hours. You already checked out half an hour ago, so...
Right. That's
you know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
Very true.
So having a kid do that, it's really, really hard. And then for a teacher trying to get their attention, and then they think that they're in trouble. And yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. It also has to do with some of the kids who probably don't have the best household. They probably have abusive parents, abusive siblings. Everybody's household's different. So it just depends.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I know in the beginning, that's when a lot of people were saying, open this, the country back up, mm-hmm. get the kids back in school and whatnot, because everybody's going through depression, anxiety, mm-hmm. and whatnot. And, in the beginning, I was kind of I don't think anybody's really going through that, Mm-hmm. I mean, I could see people who are probably alcoholics and whatnot, and they need alcohol, they need whatever. But with kids, I was I think they're fine, man. I think I would love it to stay home and not go to school and just go to a Zoom class or whatever, and hit that mute button and go back to sleep and look sad. But then I started talking to friends and family, and then they were no, yeah, my kid has depression or some kind of form of it. They're showing signs or whatever, mm-hmm. and it's that it was crazy to hear that close friends and family, their kids were going through it, Mm-hmm. But what are some of the signs as well? I mean, for us to kind of look out for?
Yeah. Just a change in their behavior. If they're normally not laughing as much, or if they're not participating as much in activities. And that one's a little harder because a lot of the kids, they're in activities like soccer, football, and all that stuff. So then they took that away too. So it's it is a little bit harder to depict, but it is more of if they're just not themselves. If you notice that they just don't have interest in doing anything anymore. Hard time getting out of bed is a big one. Yeah, I think I would more focus on that. Just knowing your child, you know what I mean? And some kids do a very good job at like hiding it. So probably just interacting more with them. You know what I mean? So if they're trying to fend away from that, that could be another sign as well.
Like try harder to engage them in socializing and whatever conversation.
Yeah, and I know, for instance, kids come from home from school, right? They do their homework sometimes, yeah, right. So, but then they go play outside with their friends. It just depends. Again, it's just like they always have certain activities after school. Some of the kids have those after school programs that they look at, like they look after them, they tutor them and everything. Again, they took all that. Oh my goodness, they took all that away. So I think it is harder, and I mean, I don't have kids myself, but I would say it would be harder to depict it. But yeah, just interacting more with the children, and if you do see that they're spending more time in bed, or if they're just not trying to get out of bed, or just not themselves, I would probably ask, like, what can you do to help them concentrate a little bit more or become more of themselves?
Okay. I know with that's with kids, but with adults, that they're going through depression, going through anxiety and whatnot, and they rely like on alcohol. You know, that's why like alcohols were essential. You know, that they didn't shut down because for that reason.
They're functioning alcoholics.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And well, we said alcohol sales went through the roof, and you know, but there's you know, with that, I mean, like, what are some of the things that people can actually do to actually help? You know, I mean, I know they can look for signs. You know, I mean, maybe not alcoholism, right? Because you know, you have to want to get help and whatnot. But like for some of these other, like for the adults, I mean, for the kids, you can, so you know, try to talk to them. Maybe seeing a therapist.
I know schools do have those social workers. I really don't know, and I should probably have more of a conversation with my colleagues that did graduate and became social workers out of school. I do know that they still see them, but again, it's via Zoom, so I don't know how that complicated their job and how it affected them. But I do know that the social workers at school still see them. School social workers are a little different than a regular therapist because they usually just refer out, or sometimes they do see them for, you know, a few weeks. But if they see they really just do need outside help, I guess you can say, they do refer them out. So again, I'm not really sure what schools and school social workers are doing to help with the kids. But for adults, it's kind of the same symptoms in a sense. Not being able to get out of bed. A lot of it is focusing, feeling lack of focus, feeling hopelessness, just again, not participating in your routine activities. We brought up alcohol. So some people started drinking when they probably never really drank before. And all of a sudden that was like their habit. That became their habit. And that was their stress reliever. But the thing is, as we all know, there's a tolerance. So then it just gets higher and higher. And then that's where I kind of brought up the functioning alcoholics. Some people are like that. And you don't even realize that they're under the influence because, again, they're functioning. It's their norm. But I'm assuming that's why they skyrocketed, because it's like you're home all the time. And some people, when they would come home from work, what's the first thing you do?
Grab a beer.
Yeah.
So you're home all the time. Well, let me drink beer all the time, you know. Go through a whole 24 pack in one day sometimes.
Yeah.
That's probably not
with the, and that was just a side comment, with the legalizing of marijuana, did you see a lot of people kind of steering more towards that for stress and depression or anxiety, or you haven't really heard much of that? Like,
not really, because the adolescents that I work with, they don't really use those substances, so I'm not really sure. I haven't really worked with adults in the past 4 years.
Okay.
But from what I heard, I think a lot of people veered more towards it's something that wasn't cannabis. I can't remember.
CBD or?
Yes.
CBD?
So like CBD oils and everything. Right. And so that kind of leaned them off of that actual cannabis, because they were using it for anxiety. They were using it to feel a little bit more at ease. And they saw that the oil helps them, so they just kind of veered off of that, you know?
Right.
So if I've ever seen if cannabis has kind of like gone up or anything, I don't think so.
Okay.
I know with at least with myself, my anxiety, that I get from time to time. In the beginning, it was crazy. Like I didn't know what it was. I'm like, I think I'm dying. Like I'm having a heart attack, bro.
You felt
Like,
that bad?
oh, it was bad. Like I'm like, fuck, man, I ate 1-2 tacos too many. Like no, it was bad though. Like I was just, it's hard to explain, until you actually go through it.
I just can't believe you blame tacos right now. I'm a little upset about
Tacos
that.
are life.
Tacos are life.
That's why, but I was like, man, maybe yeah,
Cholesterol,
me
you
pasé,
never
güey,
know,
me
yeah.
pasé.
I'm just playing.
But I never knew what it was. I would hear about it. Obviously, now when we were younger, it was just more so because of the pandemic. Like oh, people are going through this and that. And I'm just kind of like, I guess, but I don't know anybody in my family that goes through it. So it's not like a Latino thing. It happens to anybody apparently. And I did try like CBD and whatnot. That did nothing for me, bro. Like it did like nothing. Like the only thing that helped was cutting out certain foods, not drinking as much, which I think it plays a big part of it because we talked about alcoholism and whatnot, but and obviously drinking beer when it's a depressant, so it doesn't help the situation, especially if you're going through anxiety. And for me, like I know for some of my friends, and when they go through it, they have thoughts just running like going 100 miles an hour. I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. Like, is this, whatever their situation is. I'm like, and for me, it's like, man, I'm over here watching Netflix. I'm cracking up, and next thing you know, it just kicks in, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like, what did I just do? And then you start thinking about what did I eat? What did I, whatever, what triggered it?
And can you explain to the people exactly what you feel when you get one of those attacks, bro, or anxiety attacks?
Man, bro, it's so weird. It's like
I think I give you the example of drinking the Monster, like whole.
Right. Yeah, we did mention that. Talk about that. Yeah, it's like drinking a Monster or a Red Bull or whatever, where you get that like jittery feeling. But like you can tell when you have jitters, like, oh shit, my hand's shaking or whatever, and it's like, no, like I'm looking at myself, I'm like, I'm good. I haven't drank caffeine. I haven't drank, anything sugary,
But your heart's racing, you're sweating, or what?
Well, that's the thing too, because like I have when I was going through my first anxiety or panic attack or whatever, like I ended up in the hospital, man. Like I went in or whatever, and I'm like, oh man, like what is it, bro? They hooked up every machine possible. At least that's what it felt like to me. And they're like, bro, your heart rate normal, your oxygen levels normal, all the blood work, like everything's completely normal. And I'm just like, man, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like what's happening? But then they were like, yeah, like, are you stressed? That was like one of the things, like, are you stressed? Are you going through this or that? I'm like, no.
You looked at your wife and you couldn't respond. You're like, fuck, she's here, sir.
She actually wasn't in the room.
Oh, okay.
COVID.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but
COVID. Yeah, they don't let.
Oh, I thought they were trying to protect you.
She's outside, bro.
a lot of
I'm
Criminal
playing,
Minds
babe, I'm playing.
I'm
episodes.
just joking too, Karen. She gonna not let me in the house
You see,
anymore.
we're like, ese güey, ni mal. But no, that was some of the stuff that they were asking. Like maybe you're just stressed, maybe you're just whatever, and I'm just kind of like, man, I don't think so. But then maybe I was, and now it's like just cutting out certain foods and
That's good.
agua.
Yeah.
Agua, try to
Staying
stick to
hydrated?
it. Yeah, trying to stay hydrated.
A lot of people don't drink enough water, and they don't
No.
realize that can actually you can get a lot of symptoms with that you don't really think are induced because you're not drinking enough water. And part of that is that because your body is asking for that H2O.
Yeah.
Technically, you're supposed to be drinking I think like 70 or 80% of your body weight. So you have to do like that math equation, right? But you have to drink a lot. Like your body needs a lot of water, and either it will give you a headache or it will give you some kind of symptom letting you know, like, hey,
You're dehydrating here.
yeah, give me water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because yeah, I mean,
And another thing that goes hand in hand with drinking a lot of water is getting good rest, right?
yes, getting
Sleeping,
good rest.
getting
Yeah.
good rest.
Yeah, no, 100%. But it's like when you get anxiety, especially like at nighttime, you can't sleep.
Yeah, olvídate.
Oh my god, bro! Like it's so hard.
It's
and-
non-existent.
Right. So to me, I don't know if I've ever dealt with. I'm sure I have. I just not at the level probably that you're having it or as consistent. But just sometimes one of those nights where you can't sleep, that freaks me out. When I'm like, all right, I'm tossing and turning, I'm like, why the hell can I sleep? You know, and then that starts freaking me out. Like, yo, what the hell's going on? Like, I'm tired. You know what I mean? I want to go to sleep. Let's go. You know. But I don't know if that's the same exact thing you're dealing with. But that starts triggering something in me. Like, yo, okay, what the hell could be going on? Why am I not sleeping? You know, I had coffee like this morning, but what's up? You know. I usually knock out within minutes, dude. So to me,
me
any
too.
night that I'm not sleeping normal or it's taking me, you know, forever and counting sheep isn't working and shit like that, you know?
Does that ever work for you?
No, but praying does.
Praying does?
Yes. Try that. Rázate un rosario a ver si no duermes. That works, bro. Trust me. Start reading the Bible. That'll work too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will.
Yeah. Don't try to read it with the lights off. You gotta actually turn on the light to try to start reading, dude.
Have a night light.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that, bro, and like I have tried certain things, you know, like oh maybe doing this, maybe doing that, but it's like no. Once you have that anxiety, like there's almost it seems like almost nothing can knock you out for you to go to sleep, and then when I'm not thinking about because like I said, some certain friends are like oh my mind's racing. And it's like for me, no, it's not. But then I do start thinking, like, fuck. Like now I'm like counting down I'm looking at my phone. It's like, oh shit, I only got 5 hours and I have to be at work. I'm like, fuck. And then 5 hour turns like, oh man, I really only got 2 hours now. Like, damn, like how am I gonna pull it off? Like,
I've been awake or whatever.
Yeah. And so now my mind's racing, and it's like, shit.
You provoke it, yeah, in a sense. But yeah, there's a lot of different things, and I know we were talking about coping skills. And I'm a big pro on that just because there's just a lot of things that you can do either before bed or anything. A lot of people don't know, but exercising actually does help you sleep and actually reduces a lot of people's anxiety because of the hormones and everything and that are going on like while you're exercising. And it doesn't have to be anything necessarily too active. You go for a 30-minute walking, you're good. It is suggested to have like a 30-minute be active every day for 30 minutes. That's it. It doesn't matter what you do. If you really don't like exercising, just go for a walk. Something as simple as that. But yeah, there are a lot of things that people can do. Some people do take vitamins to either go to sleep, and that's the more healthy way to do it if exercising and other things are working. But it is frustrating because it's like a process of elimination. Okay, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. But one thing you do have to put into context is like, am I actually trying? Am I actually, utilizing this to make it work? So, for example, exercising. Some people say to make it a habit, it takes like 2 weeks. It's the same thing for coping skills. Like you have to make it a habit because if not, you read for 2 days. It's not working. Well, yeah,
it has to be about 2 weeks. Like,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it has to be about 2 weeks for you to.
And you would obviously recommend everything natural before you start going into these vitamins that put you to sleep or whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
What is that? I forgot what it's called.
The vitamin to sleep. It's
And they're promoting it a lot for kids now. Well, they're promoting it a lot for kids. I see it a lot for kids, and I'm like, why would they need
melatonin?
That? Yep, melatonin.
Yeah,
That's it.
Sorry. Yeah, and they do actually have like the kid version and everything because it could be too much for them. But yeah, melatonin definitely works. But again, if your body gets used to it, then you're gonna have to take more and more. Your body, it's like
so. You always recommend going the natural route. Work out, eat healthy, drink a lot of water. and
read the Bible, pray, meditate, something. Even having soothing music, something to calm your mind because your body does have to relax before it actually goes to sleep. For some people.
Right.
For some people, but some people can just knock out in 2 seconds, and I really don't know how they do that, but it happens.
That's me, yeah.
And there's some people that probably have tried everything. They're fit, man. They eat the right foods. They do have to now go to a doctor and get medication. And I had talked to a buddy. He's a nurse, and he was like, it could also be a chemical imbalance. So that's what it is, but it's like, man, I really don't want to take pills,
Yeah.
But so far, I've been able to get a grip on it. But
That's
it's
good.
like,
Yeah.
But it's like if I couldn't get a grip on it, and I was trying everything that and I'm not trying to take pills.
And most therapists, we are more pro, like for you to not try to take a medication, and you doing it more of like how I don't know, he said like
The natural
way, because medications have side effects and you don't know what side effects you're going to get. So like normally what happens, like for instance, if you knew that you're having anxiety and instead of going to the hospital, you went to go see a therapist, the therapist would actually send you back to the doctor to get all those routine tests done to make sure you're okay. And then we can go focus on, okay, it does sound more like anxiety now, but we have to eliminate that possibility. So for instance,
That it's anything else.
yeah, so like if you were to go in tomorrow to see a therapist or Monday and you told this person that you have already eliminated all that stuff, okay, then let's, continue with what's going on or whatever. But we are trained to make sure it's not medical because we need to eliminate that possibility.
Making sure
first.
your blood work, your all that oxygen levels, everything you said earlier.
Some people
everything's
with
on order.
Yeah, and some people with diabetes actually do feel like their anxiety symptoms because it could feel like that. A lot of people who have heart conditions it could feel like if it's anxiety. So we just have to eliminate that part. But it doesn't mean that you have heart condition, so it's not mental health. Like, no, they can coincide. It could be both things. It's just we need to make sure that we get that taken care of first. And then...
So you can treat them properly.
Yeah, because
Right.
if somebody does go the route of taking medication, then the psychiatrist has to make sure that the medication that they're taking is okay with all the whatever other medication somebody else is taking.
Yeah.
So-
Gotcha. And obviously, anxiety and depression is not something you choose. And we were talking like it could be genetics as well, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Definitely. That definitely can be a possibility. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the possibility. So your whole family could be fine, and then you get it. I know we're talking about that. It could be an event that causes that as well. So it just depends. Everyone's different.
Yeah. Any traumatic event or whatever.
Yeah.
you recently had a traumatic event, no? Or witnessed one? You witnessed
So,
one?
We were talking off cam, and I was telling him, well, when I was a kid, I was in the car with my mom heading to the laundromat, and we got hit. Nothing crazy, nothing huge, but after that, I was always gripping onto the seat when she would brake, or freaking out when I'm in the front seat, not trying to get in. Always trying to get in the back. And I kind of linked both together. But it kind of just phased out on his own. I don't even think I ever mentioned it to my mom or my family. Like, I'm feeling this type of way every time I'm in the front seat. I'm like freaking out. But it just kind of phased off.
Yeah.
And the other one you were talking about, I mentioned earlier too, was we're on vacation. This lady has her kid in the kiddie pool, kids facing down, and she's yelling out, to my brother-in-law to help. My brother-in-law is focused on his daughter and my son in the pool, so he's zoned in with the kids. He's not really, he could hear it, but he's not paying attention to what the words are saying. And he's like, I guess she was yelling out, "Señor, señor, ayuda," and he wasn't, it didn't click.
Yeah.
He said until the dad jumped in to save his son, then he's like, oh snap, like the little kid was drowning, and then the dad, he was pissed, bro. He was yelling at the lady, and you were mentioning those 3 words,
Yeah. It's flight, fight, or freeze.
Right.
So it's a reaction that someone has when they're going through any kind of event.
Right. And the reason why that topic came up, or that conversation came up, was I was asking my brother-in-law, like, yo, man, like, you think that lady froze? Like, she didn't jump in to save her son. And like, what happened? And he's like, I don't think she froze. Like, she was yelling out for help. Like, I could hear her, but I wasn't paying attention. But you were saying that it could be both, right?
Yeah, she did freeze in a sense because she didn't want to go and save, but at the same time she was probably too scared. So she was fighting for that person and, trying to get someone else to be able to help. So it could be a mixture.
Right. That's a weird situation. Yeah, but the dad jumped in, dude, to the kiddie pool, busted his knee kind of, because he came out of there limping, bro. I mean, imagine jumping in, it was like not deep at all, bro. Probably like 1 foot, It's for kids, dude. Noelito was standing up in there,
Oh,
So, yeah, I don't know. It is crazy, though. But
right.
Yeah, everyone reacts very different to a situation, a traumatic situation. And as I said, any event could be traumatic. It's an event that it's unexpected. That's basically what a traumatic event is. And if it does impact you in a certain way. But normally they're more of like car accidents. What that lady went through is pretty traumatic because now is she going to bring her kid around the pool now? Is she going to be too scared bringing her kid out around the pool? It could be natural disasters, as we know what happened in Texas, and I believe Colorado's going through something right now too. So it just depends.
So it's kind of a form like a PTSD, right? You said.
Yeah, it's a form of PTSD. So there is a diagnosis for that, but so somebody that experiences a traumatic event doesn't necessarily have PTSD, right? Or in general, but they still have something similar to symptoms of that. So having nightmares, not being able to go to sleep, and some people it doesn't phase it. So like, for instance, if somebody's in an accident, some people are more, how should I say it? Like if all three of us were in the accident, we're all going to be phased differently. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean it didn't really impact us. We're just processing it differently. And just because you're not having symptoms of that accident at that moment doesn't mean it can't happen 6 months later, a year later. Some people even start having symptoms like 10 years later.
Right. And I was actually going to bring that up to Checo as a question. I mean, I don't know if you're probably not, you're going to be like, I don't know, bro. But the fact that you're dealing with these anxiety attacks now, could that be something traumatic that happened to you as a child, or growing up? You know what I mean? Like, and this is just thoughts, I have no idea, but I mean, I was going to ask that just to see if anything happened, or do you remember something like, or maybe you don't remember, but you will soon, like maybe it'll be a flash, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I watched too many movies. Clearly.
I had actually talked to a friend that, he's a nurse and whatnot, and he was just like, it could be something like that, something that happened before, and then all of a sudden, and I'm just like, man, and so it got me thinking, I was like, what, but what, like, because I'm literally like, I'm laughing, I'm watching, not watching Netflix or whatever, I'm watching something, or nothing sticks out to me. So
like you were the bully. I mean, you were beating up people.
No, I was not.
So
bro.
what?
No,
what could possibly be? You had no fear. No, I apologize. I take that back.
It's interesting that you say that because it and what your brain does sometimes it suppresses it, so it kind of in a sense like files it away. And when it feels that you're ready to process that, that's when it kind of. It's like some sort of like amnesia in a sense. So like it comes back whenever it wants to. It plays with you. Your brain is very complicated. It's a very tricky, and it tries to play with you all the time. So if you don't have that control over it, it can easily take you into a spiral that you can't even imagine. But that can easily be something that you suppressed. Some people who've experienced trauma as they're in their childhood, they could have suppressed it, and especially if they didn't report something or whatever, they suppressed it, they kind of blacked it out, they don't want to remember it, but then like later on in life somehow they're having all these like triggers and having all these memories, and they don't even know why, like they don't know what's going on.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I wanted to get into depression, how it affects people, and then how we can some of the signs, I guess, so people can notice. But before that, a little quick word from our sponsor. We got to get that sponsorship in.
For sure.
So we'll be right back.
Shout out to our sponsor, Lumbre Mix, some of the best michelada mix around.
They also have chamoy for all your beverage rim needs in 3 flavors: original, mango, and watermelon. Put that thing on everything.
Also, for all the candy lovers, they have watermelon gummies and peach rings. It's a mix of gummy candy with chamoy. Just fire.
Now follow all of their social media to see what store is near you.
Y que no se apague la lumbre.
And we're back. So now we're going to talk about depression. Mm-hmm. Basically, what is depression and how it affects people. And
Well, depression can be categorized as chemical imbalance as well.
Okay.
But it also could be situational. So it could be if you're going through grief or and again, grief could be any loss of anything: a loss of a job, a loss of a loved one, a loss of a pet. It could be like some children who move away from like their childhood home. That could still be considered grief because it's something that belonged to them for a long period of time or a short period of time. So it could be situational as well. So it just depends.
Yeah, and how right now you just said it could be situational, and it could be when you lose someone. Mm-hmm. Also for like a breakup, I mean, yeah, you're losing someone, because you're not with them anymore, and it
Yeah, because they dumped your ass.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That's
sorry.
one way to put it.
I apologize, sir.
This guy.
Me pasé.
No, but again, for us Latinos, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, you broke up with your girl or they dumped you or lo que sea, and it's like you go into, you know, I guess like it's called depression. You know, for us, it's just, you know, like you're just gonna drink for a while until you get over it, you know, and man up.
Party it
You know,
up,
like-
peda. Aliviánese, compa.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is, you know.
Yeah.
But it's for some people, man, it gets bad.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there is no getting out. You know, like it gets really bad, and then it turns into alcoholism or anything else, whatever else they're into. They get
Abusing
into.
Yeah, it turned into a lot of things. So it is part of a grieving process because you did lose someone, right? So it could impact anybody in a certain way. I've seen people who they really are depressed for weeks because it could be a long-term relationship that they were in, and they probably found out they were cheating or something. So that can easily put someone into a big hole of not wanting to do anything because they feel betrayed. So it really depends. But with depression, again, it is situational. And like I was mentioning, grief, it has phases. So, for instance, if we all were experiencing the same amount of grief, we would all go through it differently than different stages of grief. But he could be depressed, but I could be denying it, and then you could be already in acceptance. Like somebody can last in depression of grief for a year, for 2, for 3, for a long time until they're able to process it. So it just depends on, again, it depends on the person. And that doesn't necessarily mean that como no están trabajando en eso. It's just, it takes longer for some people. It depends.
So is there a standard process of grieving or no? Because
is-
everybody deals with it different, but or there is a kind of like a, hey, this is
Phases.
kind of what you should be going through.
Yeah.
Try to take these steps. And,
Yeah.
Okay.
And some people skip phases. So, like, for instance, the first stage that is mentioned is denial, because normally that's what really does happen. So if you lose a loved one, what happens? Like, no puede ser, God, just bring
Can't
them back.
believe it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's a different phase. But, like, you're just in denial that this person just passed, right? That's normally the first phase, but some people either don't go through that yet, or they go right into the next phase which is called, I believe it's bargaining. I forgot the phases, like the order of the phases, but one of them is bargaining. And bargaining, for instance, is like, Dios si me lo trae para atrás, I'll do this, I'll behave, or whatever, you know. That's considered bargaining. And then there comes anger, la ira, and then there comes depression, and then there comes acceptance. I believe I said all 5. I could be missing a couple.
You said a few in Spanish. Like, you
yeah.
learned? Did you learn this stuff in
Sorry.
Spanish or no?
Well, because the adolescents that I work with right now are Spanish speaking.
Oh, that's awesome.
okay.
Yeah.
That is some good stuff.
So
Good information.
I would have loved to learn it in there, because some of them come from indigenous countries. So they do speak Spanish, but they mainly speak their dialect. So when I'm trying to present these things to them, it's a little on the challenging side. They kept me on track with my Spanish though.
Right.
But yeah, and that's what I try to explain to them. Like, it's just different. Some girls, boys and girls, some clients that I have, the adolescents, they probably lost their parent like 5 years ago. And when that happens, Checo has already mentioned it. Estás bien, nomás está aguitado, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? They're not allowing them to process it. Like, process that grief. Like, you just lost someone. Like, let them talk about it. Let them feel. Because if you're not letting them process it, and they're just going to suppress it. And we already mentioned that word earlier, right? Si nomás lo está guardando, later on, it's going to come up eventually.
Right. So at what point, and I believe, Checo, I don't know if you asked this earlier, but at what point is it like, okay, it's unhealthy that you're still talking about it, or you're still, that's all you're thinking about, you know, and if you notice that you're trying to help. Now, I didn't know that you should kind of let them speak about it and let them express, and, you know, instead of, and I feel like you don't do it on purpose to not let them speak or feel, but you try to distract the person and, you know, come at things with a different angle, or like talk about something different, or, hey, let's do this, you know, and, you know, maybe I was doing wrong and
No,
that, you know what I mean?
So what you just mentioned is actually a perfect way where if you see someone, they're just too, they've been in that stage too long, like they're just not, they're getting worse. If you see them, they're declining a lot more than where they were at. That's probably a sign like, okay, maybe we need to go talk to someone. If you don't want to talk to me, it's fine. or distract them a little bit, and maybe just encourage them a little bit. Vamos a salir afuera just a little bit, you know, go for a walk, something. But if you see they're just really rejecting that and they're not trying, then that's more of a sign that they probably should be looking for outside help a little bit. But again, the clients that I mentioned, they're adolescents. Right. So when they're adolescents, they're boys and girls. The parents are probably like, "Están bien," you know, you're fine. But when you lose a parent, some of them do come because they lost a parent. So they had to come over here to come with the other parent. And so it depends.
It's difficult, right? Yeah. So, but whenever somebody does lose someone and it's early on, you know, months, and that's fine to let them express and feel. That's 100%. What you should kind of support.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Because again, if you're just letting them shut down, they're not really relaying what they're actually feeling or what they're actually thinking. Because, for instance, I could be thinking, if I lose someone, was it my fault? Did I cause the death? They had to come pick me up and they got in a car accident, and now it's my fault. You know what I mean? So they're self-blaming. So it's really, really important to help them process it. And if you yourself don't feel comfortable, see if somebody in the family can like tag team it with you. Like, well, can you see if they can talk to you about it? Something.
Right. Okay.
Or even journaling, because some people just don't like talking about it. So journaling, as much as some people don't like doing that, it helps. A new form of journaling, actually, it's very interesting because now we're in the whole
digital?
Yes. I couldn't come up with the word. Digital phase. So some people actually audio journal now because they're talking to themselves. They are using it as a journal. Nobody else has access to it. And they're just, you know, venting that way. Because it does get exhausting, you know, writing so much and you have so much to say and everything. So just audio journaling helps a lot too.
Talking to yourself when you drive, bro. I catch myself doing that all the time.
Yeah.
I think I'm rapping, but I'm not. I'm actually talking to myself. Like, man,
is that normal?
Am I going crazy? Don't diagnose. Don't diagnose me.
She's like, yeah.
Like that was.
We're gonna talk after this podcast, right, bro?
Man, that was messed up, Checo.
Oh, okay.
When I come up with a hit song, bro, come over here asking for the rights, dude.
They'll do really well in the sane asylum. This is spitting fire.
That's messed up, bro.
But actually what you just mentioned is very therapeutic. You talking to yourself and making sure that, well, I mean, it obviously depends what you're saying, but if you're...
Facts.
Right.
Typically, I'm practicing for Compas Unfiltered, so I guess it's normal.
Yeah, it could be. You're actually, in that sense, bringing up your self-esteem.
Good.
Yeah,
I'll take
so
that.
you're increasing your self-esteem into coming into a podcast. So, yeah, that's actually a coping skill. Whether you know it or not.
Look at that. I'm doing well, bro.
All right, for people who don't want to probably record themselves talk, they want to talk to anybody, at least maybe in the family. And like I said, I don't know how it works with a therapist, like if your insurance would cover and whatnot, so it might be expensive. I mean, what else could people possibly do? Or maybe not themselves because they don't want to get the help. They're in denial. They don't want to talk about it. But maybe a family or friend, like what are things that they could possibly even do to help someone out?
Just encouraging them, honestly, but in a positive manner, because again, like if you're doing it in a demeaning manner, they're more than likely not going to try to get it. So it's like, if you don't get help, then this is going to happen kind of thing. And it's just like, just remember you have that option. But it's kind of like someone who's an alcoholic, you can't really force them. You can't, they'll only get help when they're ready to do so. And sometimes they relapse. It happens. And they just have to keep going through that cycle, until they get it right. But it's the same thing with depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, anything. They have to be ready to be able to process it. Yeah, it just depends. Like, again, when we go back to the grieving, if we all lose like the same person, right? Just because I'm ready to go talk to someone doesn't necessarily mean Checo is or you are, you know what I mean? So it just depends on the person. But just encouraging them, providing encouraging words, positive, atmosphere. If you know that the certain things that they like, just kind of implement it a little bit more. So they're more of in a positive atmosphere. But if you see, again, if they're declining or they're just changing their mannerisms after that event happened and it's getting worse, it's actually not getting better, then just kind of keeping a watchful eye. But that's the most you can do with someone until they're ready to be able to talk about it.
Right. To give out an example, I guess for myself, I had broken up with a girlfriend. Or she broke up with me, whatever. And I guess I went to some kind of a depression. You know what I mean? Like I was drinking. it was every weekend. Like guaranteed, I'm gonna black out. I already know. You know, we're gonna go here, we're gonna go there, and I don't know how I'm gonna get home, but it's gonna happen. You know, it was bad. I didn't see it as depression. I didn't see it as, you know. And the thing is, like my family would say something. You know, they're like, "Hey, you should slow down. You know, you shouldn't been drinking that much." But you know, like I said, us Latinos, like, nah, he's going through something. You know, let him drink. Let him drink. Let him get it out of his system. You know,
what happens with that though? It could get out of hand, and when it does get out of hand and you can't control it, that's where it kind of gears a little bit more towards alcoholism. And I'm not saying that you were that you haven't.
I mean, I probably was back then.
But it depends, and it could be situational as well. But with alcoholism, there's very different forms of it. So somebody can be a functioning alcoholic. It just depends how you're reacting to it or you're handling it, what the outcome is with it. So somebody could just be drinking on the weekends or once a month or once every 2 weeks. But when they hit that liquor bottle, and it depends what the consequences or what happens after that. You know what I mean? So for instance, I'll use myself as an example. I don't drink as much anymore, but just because I've noticed the circumstances I put myself in cuando me paso, it's really, really easy. I can be drinking 3 drinks and I'm out and I black out. And that some people are like, oh, that's really fast. And I'm like, but that's just my body. Like I can drink, like right now I'm drinking a 3 grams. That would be it for the day. But if I would drink a 3 grams, then a beer and something else, I'm out. Like I don't remember anything after that. And that's very scary for me. So that's why I just kind of like took a step back from it, because it could be a sign where it's not necessarily alcoholism, but the side effects that alcohol is having on me. And it's not having the best side effects. Normally alcohol doesn't have the best side effects, but in my situation it didn't. So I had to be proactive on that and just kind of like step back from it a little bit, just be more healthy on it and be more responsible with it. If you notice on every bottle, it says drink responsibly, because it is supposed to be more of a pleasure than something that you're supposed to be.
I was going to tell you just got to practice. I mean, build that tolerance. But I was joking. I'm just playing. Don't practice, guys.
No, not at all.
Unfortunately.
Practice what she's doing. Hey, pay attention to how it affects you, the side effects that it's bringing to you, and then, be responsible with
that. And if you have to like let it go, then, you let it go. It's just something that you have to kind of accept that it's just not right for you, not right for your body. It's the same thing with, I know we were talking about cannabis earlier. I mean, if that isn't really helping you, and maybe now what was it called? The CBD oil?
CBD, yeah.
That's been helping more people out a little bit more. And that's why they were, using cannabis, is to relax a little bit more and, have that anxiety relax a little bit more. But then when they came out with the CBD, that helped. So that helped them quit the cannabis part of it. But with Chico's example, going back to what he just said about him breaking up with his girlfriend and everything, he took that route. He took like, let me forget about her, pardon my language, like, fuck this. I'm just gonna, do whatever I can to get over this. You know what I mean? And sometimes that helps, but sometimes it doesn't. And fortunately, I'm hoping that it helped.
Yeah, well, I mean, to an extent, I guess.
She's gonna be in the comments like, that motherfucker didn't break up with me. I stuffed his ass. She's probably dealing with some shit right now, bro.
No, yeah, and I'm just using my example because I know a lot of people go through, breakups and whatnot, and that's kind of like the more common one, especially more for like the younger crowd. If they do listen to this or whatever, and if they're going through a breakup, and it's like, yeah, I guess you got to have that one, get it out of your way, go have fun with your friends or like I said. But when it's 6 months later and you're still doing it, it's an issue, bro. Like, you gotta stop. Yeah,
and no, I agree with that. It just, everybody has to go through it differently. And you just have to process it. And I know I say that a lot. I've said that a lot, but it's just processing it is what helps. And usually what helps is, talking about it and why did this happen? And some people go off like blame themselves. Like, well, they broke up with me because I did X, Y, and Z. But it's like, is that really the situation though? Like kind of talking about with somebody, what was someone healthy? Because like, I don't know about you guys, but younger me would probably have been like, fuck her. Like, she doesn't know what she, wants in her life and everything, and being a little bit more negative. So
you would side with your friend?
Yeah, okay. I would side with him. Yeah, like, oh, fuck her, like, whatever, but...
Let's keep drinking.
Right?
Salud. Salud. Like, she doesn't know what she's losing. You're a great drink partner. Man, salud, cabrón.
But a positive friend would be like, you know what? It sucks. I'm sorry, but what do you think happened? Like, why do you think that happened? Did you see this coming kind of thing, But you don't really think about that until you're, like, older. You're mature,
100%.
you know what I mean? Some people younger that age probably do, but...
Maduros.
Yeah, there you go, más maduros.
Do you feel like you analyze every situation and what you studied and went to school with?
Yeah.
For? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do, and I feel like just in the past few years and what I've experienced, I feel like I analyze and I observe more of the situation, but then that kind of like veers me more towards overthinking, and that causes anxiety. Yep. So then I have to find that boundary, that middle ground where
I'm not at work, like I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, you kind of have to turn off the social worker brain, and it's not easy.
Yeah, I feel like if I would know what you know, I'd be like, that motherfucker's dealing with some shit. Se le quemaron los frijoles por algo. Algo trae.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that you say that. I told that to my friend earlier this month. I told her, I was like, you know what, social worker me would say, therapist me would say this, but I'm your friend, so you know what, whatever you decide, I'm here, it's fine. But she had just broken up with someone, and they think they dated for like 8 or 9 years. So It was a long time. Yeah.
She was waiting on the ring.
Yes. I'm kidding. No. But
you're for real.
Kidding.
I'm Jane, so I mean.
What's up, Jane?
So, no, but I sometimes goof around with my friends saying that, like, do you want social worker answer, therapist answer, or do you want the friend answer? And like, obviously the friend answer is more respectful, again, because you really think that your friend wants that negative feedback. Like, no, they want encouragement. They want like, okay, I'm sorry this happened to you. What can I do?
Yeah.
They want you to hear them out. Right.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not sure if we covered too much of it, but I wanted to get into it. Did you have anything else on this?
No.
Before I switch it up a little bit?
Go ahead.
With the people that do things more on the wild side, or like commit suicide, or leave, anything deeper, or hurt someone else, or like, what do you think is triggering, or what are their thoughts before doing something like that?
In that sense.
Yeah, like that's hard to understand. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be hard to explain too, but it's a little bit intriguing to know, like, because you look at somebody, and one of the most recent ones from somebody that went to school, my younger sister, and like the guy had just had a kid or something, and it was like, I mean, I don't know the guy, I didn't know that person, but when she told me about it, I was like, man, like he just had a kid, like I have a son, like, man, I would never want to leave him, you know what I mean? But, and I'm not trying to put it in a negative manner or anything like that. I would just have a hard time understanding, like, how do you want to leave your kid? Like, just fighting for my son would be everything. I wouldn't go in the ocean for him or nothing. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, this guy.
I tell his ass not to go. I told you not to get in there, fool. Like, get out. No, but yeah, like having that understanding about that. But like I said, I mean, what kind of feedback do you have on that? Like, I know it's hard, but anything.
Normally, when somebody either attempts or has completed suicide, that's already been in their head. That's already something they've been contemplating.
Yeah.
Como ya lo querían hacer. Como ya they've already been thinking about it. And
Contemplating.
I
was trying to figure it out too.
Contemplating.
Yeah.
I'm a social worker that can't speak right. It's okay.
I was trying to figure it out. It took me the whole 30 seconds. I was like, how do you say it? How do you say it? How do you say it?
I was like, don't figure it out.
Hey, English is our second language. Jerks.
Yes. So then, with that aspect, that's already been something they've been like thinking about, and There are some people, we call it in a therapeutic term that they wear a mask. So, and that's actually everyone. Everyone wears a mask of what they want to show people and what they really are or who they really are. And as much as some people try to be their true authentic self towards like everyone, you're really only you with you. You know what I mean? So
100%.
some people just know how to mask it very well. I have a cousin who actually completed suicide. I was actually still in college. I believe, I don't know if it was during my master's or my bachelor's year, but nobody expected it. And that's something that everybody said, that nobody expected it. This girl was very intelligent, very outgoing. She was very positive. And it just from one minute to the next it happened.
And it's very hard to understand, right?
Yeah. And like I always think about it like, no, like she was happy, like no, she wasn't like, and even me as a social worker, as a therapist, like I already know that people have already been thinking about that. So like ella ya estaba malita, she just didn't want to tell people. But I kept, since it hit close to home and she is my cousin, I kept telling myself, well, no, she was a positive person, like nobody really knew. And like that, you fight with that, you know what I mean? But I should know better. And I know that unfortunately she was struggling. Nobody saw it. She knew how to hide it well. And so unfortunately.
So the best advice here for parents and like friends and is like try to really know the person that you're dealing with. For parents, more importantly for me, I'm thinking about my kids right now and I'm like, then I have to work harder to really know who they are, really know what they want, really know what they're dealing with, their friends, who they're hanging out with. As much as possible, because that's going to get you to where you want to see red flags. All right, something's up. Okay, they're not acting right.
It's like a balancing act. And some people who do really know their children very well, sometimes they just miss the hints.
Yeah.
And it just happens. Like today I just, another cousin of one of my cousins told me that her son, which is obviously my cousin, is going through a hard time right now because, and this is considered a traumatic, so it's actually a perfect example. This past week, he plays soccer, so on the way back, or everybody was leaving soccer practice, and on the way back home, he and other teammates saw one of their teammates get in a really bad car accident right in front of them. And so they all, for some reason, they all just thought really fast. They all pulled over. They actually pulled him out of the car and resuscitated him. These are 16, 17-year-old kids. Wow, and they were able to do that. And so anyways, they revived him. They waited for the ambulance, and then that happened. And then a few days later, a classmate of them completed suicide. So it's just like a double whammy for them. And like, fortunately, the kid who was in the accident, thanks to his teammates, he's alive. He's fine. He only has like minor bumps and bruises now. But like, I think he was just knocked unconscious probably. I obviously don't know the full extent of the story.
But the fact that they reacted and responded.
And fight or freeze. Right. What did they do? They fought. They like went over there.
Right.
They saved him and everything. And right now my cousin she was telling me that he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. She was telling me that her son doesn't want to talk about it. Like, I've already talked about it with my principal, with the nurse and the social worker. Like, I'm fine. I just kind of want to leave it alone right now. And I just told her, I'm like, just keep an eye on him. You know, again, he's going through a grieving process right now. So just déjalo. Y cuando él like, if you see that he's declining, and I explained it to her too, like, just, keep an eye on him. But he did he verbalized, like, ahorita no, just kind of like, because he probably felt like it was too many people were coming to him, like, congratulations, you saved someone's life, but then like he's going through grief, so it's just like a lot of mix of emotions at that time. So yeah, I mean, with a suicide, it just depends. I don't really know much about the child who committed suicide, but he was in high school, so for all we know, it could have been the pandemic. Maybe he was just so depressed and he was just done. And it could still be bullying, because even though we all know social media now and with the internet and technology and stuff, people can be anonymous when they bully.
Right.
And it just doesn't stop at school anymore. Now it's all the time, and it just depends on the kids. So that can definitely trigger somebody to complete suicide.
Right.
But
why are you using a different word than what we're used to? Is that something more a medical? Okay. Instead of committing suicide, it's completing.
Yeah,
okay.
completing.
And is that something we should be saying as well? Like,
No.
No, it doesn't. Okay,
Yeah,
I
it
didn't.
just-
I didn't sure it was a proper term or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's both terms are fine. I
Okay.
just say complete suicide because somebody can intent and can try to do it, but they're not successful. So
Got
when
it.
you say complete, they were successful, unfortunately.
And another thing that I was gonna bring up, without staying on this topic too long, but is it me or does suicide just bring a different level of sadness? Because like anytime that anybody tells me like, oh, this person committed suicide, and they tell me the story, and I'm like, and it brings me a different level of sadness of somebody that, hey, so and so just passed, they had a heart attack, or and it's not the same. Like it
a
impacts
different
me in a
grief.
different way, bro. And I don't know. It saddens me in a different way. I really don't know how to explain it. Does that?
Because it brings you the thought of what could I have done?
Okay.
That's what it, yeah. ¿Qué pude hacer yo? Could I have done something to prevent this person? And sometimes, yeah, people could have done something, but again, it comes back to like si querían ayuda, they would have tried to, show you signs or something, but some people just know how to mask it very well. They don't want to bother others with their problems. One personal note about me is that I did try when I was around 20, 21 years old. And I keep replaying it back in my head, and I kept saying that I didn't see myself going to that extent. I was not in a good place, but I never thought that I was going to go to that extent. And I actually was not living with my family at that time. So things were just kind of like downward spiraling, and it just happened. And I'm a very impulsive person. So I think that had a lot to do with it too. So like I thought about it maybe for like a day or two, and I just decided like I'm going to do it, and I did it. And then in that situation, what saved my life was that my friends found me, and they took me to the hospital right away. But some people aren't that lucky.
Right.
They could say it was an impulse. For all we know, my cousin who completed suicide, maybe it was just an impulse for her, and unfortunately hers just...
Yeah,
it went through.
Right.
Yeah,
was
she
a
was
successful attempt that.
And that's the proper term too. Successful attempt. She tried, and it just happened to go like right. I don't know if you guys ever heard of. And I always think that this happened to her. Intelligent kids, they obviously are told not to use drugs, right? They are told not to drink. They are told to do certain things and they're smart, right? So at that time, what a lot of kids were doing was hanging themselves, but till a certain point, and that would give them the same high as what like certain drugs would.
Right, I've
and
heard
they
that.
knew how to save themselves because they would like have like a stool right near them, and they would just como se paraban, and then they would get the high that they needed. So technically, yeah, they're not using drugs. It's obviously not healthy. That's not the healthy.
That was on the news for a while, where it was like a lot of people weren't saving themselves on time, like getting on this, or doing what they were supposed to do, and they were actually dying because of it. Yeah.
So what happened in that instance, in some cases, is because, again, it's a tolerance thing. So if when you're drinking, you're building that tolerance, so you have to drink more and more and more to be able to get the same effect, right, that you want personally. So in those examples, a lot of the kids were, it's not giving me the same high, so I just need another second, or I need another 2 seconds or something. Y se pasaron. And that was the theory. It's obviously not like proven or anything, or nobody really knows because nobody. Right. Yeah, but that's what a lot of people were, theorizing, because it's the same thing. They were trying to get that same high, so they're just adding more and more time to when they were using that method, and se pasaron.
Is that something new? Like,
this was a few years back when it was like real hyped or popular.
What year are we in now?
2021.
So it was around 2016, 2015, 2017.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't want to say what year because I didn't know, but it was probably, I was going to say about 4 or 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's when it was on the news a lot. It was like a lot of kids were losing their lives because they were trying this. I'm sure kids lost their life on their first attempt, didn't even get a high or anything. They were just trying and didn't know how to save themselves or how to stop this process.
Because for all you know, they kicked the stool. It was
something, whatever. Yeah.
Wow. It just depends. But I always thought that that's probably what happened to this person, but you never know. Yeah. I actually was telling my boyfriend earlier today that right now, I know Checo has been there. You know how there's railroad tracks? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a fence.
No, I never
No,
noticed.
I noticed, and I don't know if it's in front of ours too, but I've noticed in some areas there is a fence in front of it, and it's for that reason. Yeah, because I believe I was 19, 20 years old, 21, when we lived in this apartment, and we lived again near train tracks, and it was our backyard. And unfortunately, a kid that went to a high school that was near there, he had enough bullying, so.
We had one in Glenbard East as well.
Yeah.
Probably more than one, but I remember at least one hanging and one getting in front of a train as well. I'm sure we had more than that, but those are the ones that you remember, because these are morning messages for the whole school. Hey, we're grieving and we're praying for these families that are this and this so and so happened, and all of a sudden it's going through the school like, hey, this person this happened. And yeah, there was two situations, one hanging for sure I remember, and then one that got in front of a train, football player. Yeah. So, and this, like I said, this is people that you think are like, hey, he's living the dream, he's varsity team, or whatever, and it's not the case. They're dealing with something else. It could be something at home or whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where it is important to have the communication, but you just never know with those instances. It just happens, like, maybe the kid who you just like gas and Macave or whatever. One thing I kind of do want to mention is I really hope schools do better in investigating when somebody says that they're being bullied, and actually putting proper consequences on the ones who are actually doing it, because it makes the other kid's life miserable, and that's where they contemplate certain things, and they probably don't lead the life that they should be because they're receiving this at school or at home because of social media. I know, I'm not sure in this state, but in a few states, social media bullying is now, I don't want to say criminalized, but it is,
to an extent,
being penalized in a different way.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
If they find out the person who's doing it, it is still a form of bullying. So they are putting some consequences on that.
Which I think that's the right thing to do. And we go back to what we were talking about earlier, like, hey man, no sea culo, or don't be a sissy, or like, man up, take it, dude, take it like a man, whatever. But everybody's not built like that, people have feelings. Other people are more sensitive than other kids are way more sensitive. You don't know what type of upbringing they're having at their house. They may already be dealing with an abusive parent, an alcoholic parent, and then they come to school, which is supposed to be a safe zone, and then they get attacked even worse,
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, I'm happy to hear that you're saying that. I didn't know that, and my kids aren't in school yet, but I'm hoping that does take effect.
Yeah, that's just the reason I say that is because, unfortunately, as much as some people don't want to admit, some kids get special privileges, and that's what kind of really me molesta. Because, like, yeah, he's the star football player, but that doesn't excuse his behavior.
Correct.
You need him to win games. I get it, but that does not excuse his behavior. He's making other people miserable because of his actions. And like you said, if he's having a rough time at home, then we need to help him with that. Maybe not penalize him or whatever, not give him consequences, but
there's different ways to try to fix things, right? To mitigate and correct things.
Yeah.
I agree. And we got deep into the whole.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we did. No. That's good. That's good though.
Yeah.
I didn't want. But it brings I'm telling you, talking about the stuff like that, man, always brings me down a little bit. You know what I mean?
100%.
Because grieving with that is very, very different than grieving with someone who, passes naturally or of old age, or, and even if somebody was in a car accident and it was just, obviously an accident, it is just a different grieving process.
Correct. Yeah. What you got, Shanka? What do you think, man?
No, I think we kind of covered everything that I wanted to bring up and whatnot, and hopefully people learned something from this podcast. That way they can help out their family members, their friends, and now some signs to look for. Especially like I said when we talked about the kids, especially with the pandemic, and at least I guess we kind of know, and this is just our opinion and just but that way they know kind of why, why some of these kids were acting a certain way, from not being in school, not being able to socialize with kids and their friends.
Okay. And adults, I feel, do need to also watch how, like, self-care is very important. And I do feel that adults, I feel, are very affected in this pandemic as well because they're staying home a lot more.
Right.
So my advice is just be very self-aware. There is a lot of information out there. There is also the suicide hotline, now that you had mentioned about suicide. They actually have different methods of communicating. So either texting, you can call. So there's a lot of methods of getting different help. If you're too scared to ask for someone to get their help.
Right.
So because the suicide hotline doesn't necessarily mean like you're about to do it. It just means that it has crossed your mind and you just need someone to talk to really quick. So you can get that out of your mind in a sense. And they do give you coping skills. They do give you certain things to focus on, so you can kind of subside those thoughts a little bit and process those thoughts, and so you can like not move on, but like you can feel a little bit better. And the suicide hotline can be, yeah.
And actually, I didn't even know that existed, dude. The suicide hotline. My buddy's wife, and I'm not sure if she still works there, but she worked at that place or whatever. She wasn't the person that was assisting, but she was the person that would take the first initial like front line, and then she would transfer you over to an agent, you know, to get help. But before that, I didn't even know that existed, you know.
And then it does have a lot of references on that site. So if like you necessarily can't find certain things like to be self-aware or anything like that, that site does provide a lot of references, so you can educate yourself on that. But you are right, Jekyll. It is very important to just be self-aware, be educated, and just be proactive on this, because especially, again, with our culture, it's a very big stigma and something that is not really talked about. And we really do need to have that conversation with each other. And it's okay. Just normalize it. That's what I'm trying to say. Normalize it. It's fine. It's fine to have depression. But do something so you can get better, so you can be there around for your family. Or the same thing with anxiety. Some people who have anxiety stop attending events, stop doing certain things because they feel like they are going to be judged, or they just can't be themselves at that time. So then they just kind of like fade away. So, but yeah.
Try to work on it. Try to process it. Try to get it, get it right.
Yes.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I was gonna say, just to kind of wrap up. I was gonna link, if you have links or phone numbers, I'll put that on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I mean, I'll link everything below. I don't know if you know them right off the top of your head, but I'll link it later on. And I think that's pretty much it. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you again for coming on and helping us talk about this subject. I know it's a little touchy for some people, and hopefully, like I said, people learn something and are now able to help, or at least to look out for the signs, for those family members, for those friends that, they might suspect. And you break up with a girlfriend or whatever. Like I said, man, it's okay that one, two,
you
whatever.
Keep going back to that, bro. I think you're still dealing with something, dude.
I'm still hurt, bro. Nah, hell no. But no, it's just, hey, it's all right. But after a while, man, y'all got to shake it off. No.
Right. And, but all jokes aside, for real, if anybody is dealing with something, or if you know someone that's dealing, try to help out. Try to, be kind, be respectful, be mindful. You never know what someone is going through before you react to something and be angry. Always think like, yeah, you never know what that person's going through, and shake it off, whatever it could be. Sometimes you get upset over some dumb shit, and you never know what that person's dealing with. Yeah. So just always be mindful, respectful, and be kind. And
that's it. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Estamos. This is Compas Unfiltered.
Peace.